If you've ever been pushing, grinding, producing, and showing up for everybody else while quietly running on empty, this conversation is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
But I want to celebrate you for doing what I help clients remember how to do, which is to first listen to the instinct inside or the voice inside that says, time to sit down. A lot of us forget how to do that. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those people. I arrived at coaching in a very broken place where I had burned myself all the way out in fundraising, trying to do a good thing, trying to further missions that I believed in, and had nothing left to give.
What happens when the pressure that once drove you forward starts becoming the very thing that breaks you down? This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life ever. Today's guest is Erin McQuade-Wright, a coach who helps people move from burnout to breakthrough by reconnecting with their inner wisdom, regulating their nervous system, and leading from a more grounded place. You know, I met Erin earlier this year at PodFest, and we had such a fantastic conversation, and we knew that we had to move from PodFest to this podcast. And what really stood out to me in this conversation was how honestly she unpacked the connection between safety, self-trust, and courage it takes to create healthier boundaries. So now that we've got the table set, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Erin. Enjoy. Hey, Erin, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. Appreciate you for taking the time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Audley. Well, it's lovely to be with you and your audience today.
Yeah, and it's great. I always say it's great to have an opportunity just to share and engage and dialogue. So the way I oftentimes frame it is, so here you are, Erin, you and I are going to engage in a conversation, and other people have the opportunity to eavesdrop on what we're talking about, and they could potentially take something from what we share and use in their own lives and get themselves to a better place, or increase their trajectory, or have some kind of improvement hack that makes them do great things. Like, that's an awesome part. It's an awesome process to be a part of. Yeah, and we may never know, right? We'll never know, but to think that possibly exists is just wild.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for the ripple effect, and I have certainly been a beneficiary of that with other people's. I love podcasts, and so I'm constantly listening in on other people's conversations and taking nuggets and applying them to my life. So I'm here for it.
Awesome. And we first connected at PodFest back in Orlando a little while back, and we were just talking about the great energy that exists in that space when you've got all these content creators that want to change the world, doing great things in their own special way. You walk away certainly inspired, and we connected there, and we knew that we were going to have this conversation. It was going to happen, and I'm glad that we did do it. And I'd love to sort of give you an opportunity to zero in on the work that you do, because you sort of specialize in helping people through burnout, right? And saying taking burnout to breakthrough, and again getting that better place that we just talked about, that more audacious place, kind of within the context of this podcast. And so maybe as a starting point, Erin, if you can introduce yourself to the audience, sort of talk about the work that you do and kind of what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah, when we met at PodFest, I have to say that I had launched my podcast 10 days earlier. So that. It was everything was new, and everything was news to me, pretty much, that I had learned there. Now, I had taken a podcasting course, so I did come in with some information under my belt and some best practices, like don't launch with just one episode. I'd stockpiled about 13 episodes before I started and felt much more secure and grounded from that place. But it was such a beautiful atmosphere at PodFest. And I have to say, meeting you was one of my top highlights, because we were just able to vibe off it was a very summer camp vibe, like
Yes.
there was no cutthroat, there was no
Yeah, yeah,
competition.
yeah.
Everybody has podcasts and wanted to help each other out. And I was like, this is my pool to swim in. So it was really beautiful to be there in general, and to meet you is like the cherry on top. So I'm so
Oh,
thrilled that we get to have this conversation today. And
it's funny when I think about our meeting. If you remember correctly, I was sitting in a chair,
yeah,
and you came to me, and I can't remember what you said it to me. I think you thought I was someone else. I think.
I was about to thank you for giving me advice about what to bring to the Pod Fest through the Hoova app,
Yes.
which has these tiny little pictures of the contributors. And I wasn't wearing my glasses. And so I was like, thank you for telling me to bring a backpack. And you were like, that wasn't me.
I'm like, who are you? Well, what's funny is the moment before that, I had just sat down because I probably had engaged in like three or four back-to-back high energy conversations. And
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
I need to take a break. And I sat down and you came up and said, hey, and I jumped right back into it again, right? And as you can tell, like my energy didn't drop off. We were right into it. We were kind of going back and forth. But I
Yeah,
remember
I would
going,
never have known that.
let me just take a second here, and because I just was
Oh,
like and it's easy to happen, right? Like you can
yeah.
turn the next person, turn the next, and you're just bumping into people constantly. And I remember saying to myself, okay, just take a second, and I literally just sat down, and that's when you approached me, and I go, hey, what's going on? How you doing? That's
You're not off. You're back on. Go.
right, that's
Yeah.
right. Which I
And
think
that,
actually which is kind of cool because um you help people through burnout and
yeah, it,
being able to take that time and that, I think that's a really good segue into that because
mhm.
it's so important to take that time when you experience, and that's what I did. I said, although I didn't do a very good job of it, right, but I said, let me take the time, right? That's kind of what people need to
Well,
do.
yeah, and I think we were supposed to meet, and it's beautiful that it happened the way it did. I didn't
Yes.
know that context, but I want to celebrate you for doing what I help clients remember how to do, which is to first listen to the instinct inside or the voice inside that says, time to sit down, time to slow down,
Yeah.
time to just take a moment, take a breath, because a lot of us forget how to do that.
Hmm.
And I was one of those people. So I came to the work that I do today as a coach, helping people through, build their leadership by first mastering their own nervous system regulation and their own emotions.
Mm.
I came to that work through the world of philanthropy.
Okay.
So for 15 years, I was in charge of raising money for one cause or another.
Hmm.
And sometimes that meant that I was a single shop doing all the fundraising myself. Sometimes I had a team. And in the best situations, I had CEOs and board members who
Yeah.
recognized that they also had responsibility for fundraising within the organization, and they didn't just dump it all on the professional
Right.
fundraiser.
Right.
But I really felt motivated by stress and pressure. And I used that stress and pressure
Yeah.
as a catalyst to get my work done and
Right.
to be really impactful in my fundraising. So
Yes.
that could look like an inner dialogue that sounded like, David's going to lose his job if I don't bring in enough money to keep his salary on the rolls. Let me go and get a grant today. Let me go and ask this person for a major gift today. And I
Right.
was using stress and pressure as my motivator.
Right.
And that worked. I was able to raise millions and millions of dollars
Hmm.
until it didn't. And there was a bodily cost to that in my adrenals, my stress hormones, my body started to tell me this is not sustainable. Not every
Right.
day can be an emergency.
Right.
Let's find another way. And so I arrived at coaching in a very broken place where I had burned myself all the way out in
Right.
fundraising, trying to do a good thing, trying to further missions that I believed in, and had nothing left to give. And I became a student of coaching and became a client of coaching, and from this very specific type of coaching that's actually rooted in therapy
Mm-hmm.
and somatic work in the body, I
Mm-hmm.
was able to clear a lot of misunderstandings that got me
Yep.
stuck in that soup of stress and
Mm-hmm.
pressure in the
Mm-hmm.
first place.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, congratulations to kind of walk that journey. And the part I always love about stories such as yours is recognizing that your experiences fuel the work that you do to help others.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just like, it's like, yeah, I've gone through something. I've had to figure it out. Maybe I had resources, maybe I had other people, maybe I did it on myself, whatever. But I got to the other side, and now I'm like, okay, folks, come on, let me help you kind of figure your path out and
Yeah.
maybe shorten your learning curve. And that's, to me, that's the best part of the whole story, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
The the thing that really stands out to me when I look over your shoulder and I see the title of your podcast and this idea of audacious living, I really had a misunderstanding when I was in the thick of it that it was not for me to live audaciously. That if I were to do that, I don't know if you've ever heard of tall poppy syndrome, but the idea
Absolutely.
is,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
tallest poppy gets cut off,
Cut off,
right?
yeah.
So don't shine,
Yes.
don't get tall,
Yeah.
and
Be
stay
like everyone
safe
else.
by
Yeah.
staying hidden,
Yeah.
right? And so I really bought into that misunderstanding that that's where my safety came from. And what I didn't count on is the shadow side of that safety strategy was real resentment. Like, why do I have to follow you?
Yes.
Why can't I do my thing? So it was an internal boxing match of I want to show up like this, but I think I have to show up like that. And by doing this push pull internally, I
Yep.
was spending so much of my energy, my life force, my bandwidth refereeing this fight that I had nothing left for asking the big questions of what my audacious life would even be. It's like no time for that.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
just all just this back and forth internal muck. And getting stuck in that was actually giving me something that I couldn't admit to myself at the time. It was giving me a hiding place that
Yeah.
I could just be resentful of the people that were shining around
That's
me.
right.
But I didn't have to take on the burden of, okay, Erin, what's the impact that's uniquely yours to leave in the world? That was too scary to be audacious.
Well, and so thank you for raising that point around your viewpoint on audacity, because it's a common one I hear often, right? It's a common people say, well, how do I be more audacious? You already are. You just haven't tapped into it. It's already there.
Yeah.
Like no one's. It's not. There's no magic potion. You're not picking up from the sky or not. It's already there. You just got to recognize here that you can be. And I oftentimes use the example of a baby learning how to walk, right? Nobody told that baby, here's what you do and then do this. And if they fall down, don't do that. They just said, hey, let me try this. And the whole I think next to next to audacity, I'm a big fan of the word curiosity. So I love curiosity. So if I were a favorite word list, the word try would be on that. I'm not sure if it'd be third or fourth. I'm trying to figure that out. But try is on that. Like, why not just try? Because you don't know what will happen. There's a concept I talk about, the fail forward advantage, right? Because we oftentimes don't try because we think we're going to fail. And I'm going, let's kind of flip this on its head and treat failure as an opportunity to learn and get better and grow. Because if you do something, and let's give ourselves some grace here. If you're trying something the very first time that you've never done before, chances are you're going to suck at it. Chances are there'll be a percentage of us that are high achievers, but you may not be very good at that. So now that you've got that out of the way, if you tried something, it doesn't work out, you've gained insight, you got evidence, you got data that you can use for the future. And so the point, the audacity is already there. It's more just I think it's one of the myths, right? That's one I spent a lot of time talking about the myths of audacity, and that definitely is one of them for sure.
Yeah, we're waiting often to feel audacious before taking action. And the big hack here is that feeling of courageousness comes from being in action. But I think if we're waiting around for the feeling, like I'm now an audacious person and I take action, then we will be waiting around a long time because
Right.
that feeling really comes to us after we have the faith in ourselves to take action. And someone said to me last week, God meets me in action. And I loved that
Yeah.
phrase. I hadn't heard it before. And it's like, yeah, if I'm waiting for all of the things to line up, then actually that's pointing to something really important in me,
Hmm.
which is safety. So I used to have the misunderstanding that my safety was
Hmm.
given to me by others. So
Yes.
having a job gave me safety. Having
Right.
a spouse or a partner that loved me gave me safety. And when I was able to learn to really be a student of life and be taught and really take it in that I control my own safety and no one can take it from me or give it
Right.
to me,
Yep. Hmm.
that's the place from which I can take audacious action. But I
Yes.
first have to feel safe. And so this is often the crux of what I'm working with clients on is that how do we generate safety? Because no matter whether it's we want to find love, we want to start a business, we want to start a podcast, we're looking for that feeling of safety.
Hmm.
And the ego naturally wants to keep us safe. So it
Yes.
projects fear onto
Yes.
any unknown situation. I haven't done that before. So
Right.
therefore, it's scary,
Yes.
right? But when we really get that we create our own safety,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's an opportunity for us to be like, okay, let me practice that and still move. And
Hmm.
I got to put this into practice over the weekend
Okay.
when I competed in a speech contest for the first time.
Well, awesome.
And I competed. I'm part of Toastmasters because
Yeah.
as a person who started a podcast, I wanted to really get comfortable speaking extemporaneously from a speech. And I signed up for a 2 minute speech that I wouldn't know what it was about. I would be speaking extemporaneously off the top of my head. I
Yeah.
would be given the question in the moment, and I didn't know there would be, 100 something people in the room. But I did that, and I just on the way in was able to say, how many times does it happen in life that I get to experience something for the first time as a
Yeah.
grown adult? I get
Yes.
to experience for the first time what it's like to participate in a speech contest. And I gave myself that credit for showing up, no matter what the outcome was.
That's
And I
right.
didn't win, but I already won by being
Yeah.
there. And I knew that going in. And that made me feel really safe and really grounded, like the
I love
stakes
it.
were low.
Yep.
And I did the best that I could. And that was a really fun thing for me to try.
I love that for you because it's that's really what it's about here. You take that step forward, not knowing where the staircase is going to lead, but you step forward anyways, and it's part of the reason why I'm such a big fan of celebrating wins, like
Yeah.
giving yourself credit for what you've achieved because it's really easy to forget your greatness in the moment, right? I remember once I went on this really extensive long cycling bike ride trip and like halfway through I remember getting to this hill going I can't do this hill, right?
Mm,
And I had to remember that I've been riding for the last 4 hours. I've run into a bunch of hills before. It's not that I can't do the hill. It's maybe I feel too tired, which is a different language, right?
right.
It's entirely different language. Not that you can't do it. I can do it. I'm just tired. And maybe this is
Yeah.
where I give myself permission. Like I sat down in the chair, right? Take a break. That's fine. But when I tell myself you can't do something, but then you have the evidence of what you've done 100 times before that says you can do it. That I think that's a way of overcoming those instances where the self talk is saying you can't do something, and so that's celebrating wins is a big one for me.
Yeah. And I learned that when I was a fundraiser,
Mhm.
if I celebrated the wins of getting a $40,000 gift or a grant came in the door, I interpreted that if I celebrated that, that I would be maybe caught celebrating and someone could say, why aren't you raising the next 40,000?
Oh, wow.
So the meaning I made out of that was I stay safe when I just keep barreling through and
Wow.
get to the next thing and to the next thing and to the next thing. And so I didn't celebrate the wins.
So then what was the success? Like at the end of the goal, at the end, you got the fundraising target? Is that how you
Yeah.
saw? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So any gift that came in really was just like exciting. But I kept myself on this kind of straight and narrow track, thinking if I don't get, I thought if I celebrated, then maybe I would become lazy and I would just stop working. So I said, I better ensure that I keep working hard. So, yay, I'm glad it came in, but we don't celebrate that. I would
Mm.
do, no more than like, yay, I'm glad it came in. And I remembered having a team and they would, it was their win. And I really wouldn't celebrate that either. I'd be like, good job, and let's keep going. And I I remember that there was some like, oh, like we can't celebrate that. And what I thought I was doing was ensuring that we were safe by still like not
Right.
celebrating until we got to the end. And guess what? In fundraising, there's no end. You start at a zero goal the next year.
Right.
But when I was in coaching, I learned about a concept called a nourishment barrier.
Okay.
When we don't celebrate our wins, we get a barrier, almost like a barrier on our skin when our skin gets like thicker and
Okay.
harder.
Yeah.
We don't let the wins in, and it becomes harder to feel things in general. The highs are muted, the lows are muted, and it's just sort of this robotic middle place that we get to
Mm.
occupy. Our lane that we get to experience in life gets smaller. And so when we do the important thing, I now know celebrating the wins is really
Yeah.
important. We
Yeah.
actually expand our awareness of
Yes.
what the beautiful things are in life, right? I get to celebrate the fact that I look out my window and there is a mountain there. Every day I'm like, oh, thank God there's a mountain there. It's so beautiful and giving me perspective and seeing the sky in this gorgeous state of New Mexico that I get to live in, right? And so by celebrating what is in front of us and those
Yes.
things that we do, like be a guest on a podcast, have a great conversation, we start to lessen that nourishment barrier and we let the good of life
Yeah.
in. And it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful practice that I love to do.
It just seems in my mind so wild that we don't want to celebrate the good stuff. Like it just
Yeah.
seems like wow, like you don't want to enjoy that, even as a reminder of who you are and what you're capable of. I just yeah, and maybe it's something. Maybe it's because I think I've always been doing it naturally, so it's just
Yeah.
second nature to me, right? But that's a difficult one for me to comprehend, and I get it. Like it's real for people, so I don't want to minimize that as hey, like get a big deal, get over. I don't want to do that, but certainly it's a hard concept for me to not give myself credit for what I've done.
Yeah, I love that for you. And we've all got different stuff. And I can
Yeah.
tell you exactly where mine started. Mine started at a young age. And I remember like lying down, being in a completely relaxed state, watching cartoons on TV with my brother and my sisters, or maybe it was just a couple of us. And I remember a parent coming in the room and saying, what are you doing? There's cleaning to do. Come on, it's Saturday morning. We got to do our cleaning. Get up, get it. And so this startle
Yes.
reaction that
Yes.
came from being in pleasure and enjoyment of just lying down and enjoying some laughs and, funny art or whatever it was, being interrupted by taskiness is something that got locked in for me in that
Mm.
time as a
Mm.
safety strategy. Better
Yes.
not to relax, better to keep
Ah.
focused on working. And,
Yes.
that worked at the time. That
Yes.
kept me in a place where I got my needs met at the time. But the thing
Yes.
with these patterns is when we become adult, if you fast forward into adulthood, you find yourself in a fundraising role where you're not celebrating any wins because you don't
Yes.
want anyone to see you celebrating and say, hey, you're not on the job. forget it. You should be doing something other than what you're doing. So this is why these patterns that we set in place as young
Yep.
people that keep us
Yes.
safe can get stuck running in the background. And sometimes it's time for an upgrade to those
It is.
patterns.
I will share with you a pattern that I grew up with, and as you were talking, I went straight to there. So when I was a child growing up, we went to church every Sunday, right? And
Mhm.
and my mom wanted to make sure that we had the best clothes on. We looked at the good clothes and pants, and
Yeah.
and I used to, and I used to go through shoes like crazy. Like I was always like running shoes. I was just rambunctious over. And I ripped through them all the time. And so I had Sunday shoes. I only could wear them to church on Sundays. And
Mm.
that's how I grew up. It wasn't until I was in my early 40s I realized I still had Sunday shoes. And I'm going, why? And I'm looking at these shoes going, why can't I wear them on Tuesday? Like, why can't I wear them on
Mm.
Thursday? Why only Sunday? It's because I've had this thing in my mind that I grew up with. And
Yeah.
at that time, it was absolutely necessary. Like
Right.
and we have to be careful that we don't demonize ourselves or beat ourselves up
Right.
further, because you alluded to it no longer served its purpose at the age of 40 years old. I had Sunday shoes.
That's right.
It just didn't.
That's right.
And it was when I got to that point, like, oh, I can wear them today. Wow. Like
Yeah.
and so that's really what we're talking about, the limiting beliefs, because those are the things that we hold ourselves back. And then what happens, Erin, is they run on autopilot and we don't even think about them. We think
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. This is how it
Right.
always is. And it's not until we stop and say, hey, like, why are we doing this? I remember hearing the story once, you may have heard this one, where, a woman grew up watching her mother cut the turkey wings off the turkey, right? Because
Yeah.
the pot was too small. And so she
Yeah.
grew up going, hey, this is how you make turkey for family holidays. You cut the wings off and that's it. And then when you start to ask that question, why? And I think it's so important. Every so often we kind of do that little check-in and maybe a little bit of house cleaning inside, going like, what beliefs am I holding on to? Why might I do this or what?
Yeah.
And a good way for me is the things that so if there's anything that I say, I always do this, I only do this, or I never do that,
Yeah.
examine that. Why? Ask yourself. And in the coaching space, they say ask why 5 times, right? So
Mm.
ask, and then
Mm.
ask until you get to the heart of it. And you may realize that this is just something I shouldn't be doing because it doesn't serve any purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times it's because, we haven't questioned the belief. And I
That's
love
right.
the work of Byron Katie, who tells us how to have deep inquiry into a specific thought at a time. And I love doing her worksheets, which are all for free on her website, thework.com. And that's part of, I incorporate that in my coaching as well. And then I use the Enneagram as another tool that when I work with clients, because I find it helps shortcut the learning curve and shortcut the number of lessons that we need to, the number of sessions that we need to have together, because there's a core fear and a core
Yes.
desire in each of the 9 types of the Enneagram. And the sooner we can get to that core fear, the
Yeah.
sooner we can start to see, oh, this is why I put this pattern in
Right.
place. Oh,
Right.
this is what I'm actually looking for. Let me give myself this now, instead of trying to orchestrate other people or
That's right.
whatever it is that
Yeah,
we're
to get them to fit
using.
our world, right? That's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know it all too well. Um, I do want to go back to your fundraising world, because and I don't want to gloss over the fact that it is a high stakes, it's high pressure, and it's go go go, as you said quite clearly. There's a part of that. And I think it's prevalent, not just sort of in the fundraising world, but in our culture, where we go, well, we embrace that pressure, we embrace that sort of high stakes world, and that's the way it's supposed to be, because that's how I'll perform best. And to your point, in the long run, no, it doesn't help you, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
get you to where optimally where we need to be. But I think there's just, and we talk about, as talk about myths of audacity, right? I think there's some myths around what pressure and stress is. I don't know if people fully understand the ramifications of adopting and absorbing these things and embracing them like they're supposed to be there when they're really not.
Yeah. And I think fundraising is somewhat unique. And I can tell my story, and it's certainly we're all unique individuals. It doesn't go, I'm not painting the whole profession with a broad brush, but it does tend to attract people who want to help.
Okay.
And for my part as a fundraiser, I learned some early lessons growing up. The meaning that I made of my home situation was that the safest that I could be was to not have any needs of my own.
Right.
So fast forward that pattern to adulthood, it made a lot more sense to me to be able to show up and support a mission that was somebody else's, rather than to go out into the marketplace and say, here's what I provide, here's what my services are worth. Will you pay me that? Like, this is what it's worth to work with me. Mm-hmm. That felt scary to me because it felt like having my own needs. So I went instead in the direction of, oh, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for this mission. See the good they do. It felt there was some safety in that, in being able to hide in that space for me. Again, not everyone does this in fundraising, but it's $1.4 trillion of the US economy per year that is generated by the nonprofit sector. It's a huge driver of our economy in America. And for fundraisers themselves, the average tenure of staying at a job is 16 to 24 months. It is such high turnover, even for the nonprofit sector. That job of fundraising churns through people like nothing else. It's a super high stress and churny kind of role. And that's why when I learned what I learned and started to heal my fundraising trauma, I looked at the marketplace to see what was available for professional fundraisers in terms of managing the inner game of fundraising. And there was not a lot out there. And that's why I wanted to create my podcast, The Brave and Balanced Fundraiser, simply because, as you said earlier, Audley, reaching back and helping the person I used to be with the tools that helped me for free is something that I want to be in the business of. And seeing that we could actually fundraise from a place of abundance rather than from a place of scarcity is the work of freeing ourselves from our past programs and patterns. And there's so much more joy when we're able to do it from that place. There's so much more freedom and ease in the body when we can do it from that place. And my theory is that we will not be jumping ship to find another job every 16 to 24 months if we can manage coming back to ourselves and our own emotional mastery in the first place.
Yeah. Thinking about that process as you're going through the work, right, and to get yourself to the other side, I know we have lots of internal conversations as we're going through this, through all this process. What was the sort of hardest sort of conversation that you had to have with yourself?
I used to have a belief that I didn't have inner wisdom.
Okay.
That if I had it, I didn't know how to access it. The best that I could do was ask other people what was right for me. I put a lot of faith and trust in others to help me guide and navigate my life. And that felt like a really kind thing to do for myself because I believed I had this disability of sorts of not being able to hear my own inner navigation system. So the biggest thing for me was learning how to access that we're all born with that inner navigation system, that inner GPS. But if we get early messages like, don't trust yourself, trust what your parent says, trust what your teacher says, trust what your pastor says, whatever the characters are in our life, we can get the message that we're not to be trusted, that whatever we want must be the wrong thing. So make a better choice. And I've grown beyond that way of thinking now, but when I was in that way of thinking, that really seemed to make a lot of sense to me. It really seemed logical. But you play that out and you begin to outsource your power to others. You begin to outsource your power to, I'm good if my boss is happy with me. I'm bad if they're not. I'm good if I reach my fundraising goal. I'm bad if I don't reach my fundraising goal.
Right.
And so you're on this roller coaster ride, which is just, up and down and back and forth. And it's really hard to settle your nervous system when
Of
you're
course.
on that ride.
Of
It's
course.
really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And so
You
this,
got to get off the ride, right? Like
yeah,
you do
you
that.
got to be able to come home to yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes the people I work with have made a decision. They say top performers in all of their fields use coaches. And so I work with the people who want some accountability to come back to themselves, to come walk them back to their own front door of who they actually are, and to be able to deepen their understanding of their inner voice, deepen their understanding of that navigation system that's trying to guide them, begin to trust it. And
Hmm.
I think of it as like playing the softest game of catch with a little baby, like
Love
so
that.
gently. I'm throwing out a question and you can throw me back an answer. And just having that level of tenderness with ourselves, allowing us to be new at something. I'm going to hear my inner voice today. Okay, let me get quiet and hear that. And the biggest thing for me was to find out that that's there, that that's a muscle I can build over time,
Yeah.
and it will never lead me in the wrong direction. It's beautiful.
Mhm. Oh, it is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. I'd love how you. I'd love to hear how you help your clients sort of come to that balance between, um, like being ambitious, right? Like and that's a healthy thing. Like to want, you want something better
Yeah.
for yourself, and you go after, right? So being ambitious, but then there's still your well-being that you have to be mindful of, right? And there is a balance between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And I find that I tend to attract smarty pants into my world, people
Okay.
who are really brilliant and they've got such a powerful mind. And we really value that in our culture, don't we? What you know, what you can remember, what you have experienced and you can articulate. We really value that stuff. We pay people a lot of money for what they know. But the problem is that we're not just what we know. We have a whole body. And if you've ever had the experience of saying something, telling a story, or saying something that's not sad, but you have a tear running down your cheek and you're going, I don't even know why I'm crying. I don't, what is even happening here? This isn't a sad story. That's an example of your mind being on one level and your body being on another. So the
Okay.
work that I do with people is a little bit deeper than traditional coaching, which
Okay.
deals with mindset and strategy. And I was taught by a former clinical somatic psychotherapist.
Okay.
So that means the coaching that I do is done in the body on a somatic level,
Yes.
emotionally, behaviorally, on a mindset level, and unconsciously. So I do 5 layers of
Well,
healing with people to really be able to clear those blocks at the root. And I had an experience when I
and sorry,
was,
do you run through all five all the time, or is it based on situation or scenario, or
it's based on where the client is.
okay, okay,
And this is the story that really illustrates this for me. So I was an executive in fundraising. I had one of the perks of my job was I got to work with an executive coach. And
okay,
this coach was working with several people in my office, was acclaimed within the field of philanthropy for coaching. And my pre-work was to do a disc analysis. And so there were several different ways that I was assessing myself or my colleagues were assessing me and how I was showing up in the work. And I was in my first meeting with my coach. We were on Zoom. It was right around COVID time. And she was saying, okay, now I'm going to give you your results of the first analysis. And this is the one where you are talking about how you're showing up in the job versus how you think the job is expecting you to show up and the gap
okay,
in
okay,
between. She said those words to me, and oddly, I kid you not, I burst into tears because for me, there was a huge gap between how I was showing up, my strengths, my gifts, the beauty of me, and how I felt like the job was expecting me to show up. I was hired by one president who, my first day on the job, announced his retirement. So I was being led by a different person who didn't hire me and would not
Gotcha.
have hired me.
Right.
So there was a big gap there. There was a gulf there between how I was showing up and how I felt like I was expected to show up. And it felt really unfair. So here I am in this meeting with my coach. I'm bursting into tears. And her instinct when I am in my emotions was to meet me in the level of mindset, which is a different level. They speak emotions and thoughts are different languages.
Yes.
And she said, "Oh, Erin, I don't understand why you're crying. This isn't the assessment that your colleagues are doing of you. This is just you assessing yourself."
Right.
And it made perfect sense to her that she needed to clarify which one of the analyses this was, because I was getting upset over the wrong one.
Right. Right.
But to me, that was an example of me being met. I was in an emotional place and I was being met with mindset, and it made me feel entirely unseen. It made me feel shame. I felt like I was doing the wrong thing, like I was reacting the wrong way, which just made me feel worse. And so I really deeply understood when I was learning, when I was getting my accreditation in the mastery method of coaching, that my skill and my best offering to a client was to meet them where they are. And so if they are in their body having a somatic response to something, I meet them there. If they're in their emotions, I meet them there. If they're in their head, I'm not going to meet them in their emotions. Right?
Right.
So being able to have that facility of doing 5 levels of healing with anyone is really powerful. And they don't have to get with my program and do the 5 things that I'm doing. I'm able to use whatever tool is necessary to meet them where they are. And that makes working with me like a customized graduate program for them, for what they are trying to achieve.
No, and it makes total sense. It makes total sense. Like you're meeting people with emotions, and they're not. It's not going to get you to that place where you need to be, right? And so and it's so funny because it's a really slight deviance. It's not like a huge shift, right? But it's enough that can make that difference for people to maybe hear. Is that where they hear better? Is that or understand perhaps themselves better?
People, I think fundamentally, as humans, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And when someone meets us with mindset, when we're in emotion, we are fundamentally not seen. We are fundamentally not heard. And we're told, without so many words, we're told that we're wrong. We're wrong. We're doing the wrong thing. We're being wrong. And for me, who every day was having a feeling of already being wrong, that was just like pouring gasoline on a fire. My poor coach, she was like, "What is going on here?" But she did what she had the training to do, which was mindset work. She was more of a traditional coach. She didn't have, things like the mastery method. She didn't have emotional based coaching available to her, or a somatic work that she was able to dip into and be like, "Okay, let's put this aside. This is a tender moment. What's going on for you?"
Got you. I also love the fact that you work with executives because as executives and leaders, they have the opportunity to sort of lay the groundwork and the foundation for others to follow, right? Like, and that's so key. And so if I, as an executive, burning myself out, right?
Yeah.
That's sending a message to everyone else around that you're leading. But on the other side of that coin, if I am, having clear boundaries and I'm, doing what I can to support a culture, because we're leaders responsible for building culture, right? So if building a culture where there's a balance and support, but still achieving excellence, that's that can do such wonderful things. So I love the fact that your focus is on leaders and executives.
Yeah. I mean, I think no matter what we're trying to do, 80% of the work is confronting ourselves and what those old stories are. And so a person with a brilliant mind who is leading a team can often have trouble turning it off at home. So they can be so into answering those emails, responding to what's on fire, that when they get home, they're snappish with their family. They're not listening to their spouse. They have a hard time staying off their phone. They reach for their phone first thing in the morning. I worked with a client who had this experience, and she was just like, I feel like I'm just turning into this monster. And when we dug into the patterns that she was dealing with and where they came from, we realized that no one was asking her to be on all the time.
Right.
No one was asking her to drop everything, to drop her own work when they came to her office with a question.
Right.
No, but she was doing that. So she was automatically reaching out and seeing what others needed at all times. And she had become addicted to that pattern because she thought that's where her safety came from. As long as everybody else was happy with her, she was okay. And so she found safety by leaning into the idea that others might not be happy with her. Others might not be okay about her. And so that made her super vigilant. And it also made her have no presence at home. And so she really wanted to work on this. She really wanted to have that leadership presence that is not someone scrambling behind the problems of the day, but someone who is guiding the direction of the organization and the family. And when we started doing these practices of, you don't reach your phone the first thing in the morning, you take that time with yourself first thing in the morning, she found that there were no emergencies that were waiting for her to respond, that she was telling herself that there were, but there really weren't. When people came to her office and said, hey, can we talk about this thing? And she would say, actually, I'm in the middle of a project right now. Can we meet at 2:30? They were fine. She didn't lose relationships with her colleagues by stating that boundary. And what she had at the end of the day was more time for her family and herself, because her own work didn't get pushed to the nights and the weekends like it had been. And she found presence in that way. And it was really beautiful to see her grow in that way.
Love it. I do. And the idea of establishing boundaries, quite honestly, that in itself is an audacious act. People, a lot of people, when I talk about myths of audacity, individuals will think it's these big, grandiose things. So I haven't climbed Mount Everest or skydive or done something big that I'm not being audacious. And so conversation I have is absolutely taking a stand for yourself, establishing a boundary is an audacious act, and we should recognize that and celebrate that within ourselves. So it doesn't have to be big things. I think that's an example. A question I like to ask, if fear had a voice, okay, what would it say to someone that's pursuing audacity? What do you think it would say?
Better not. Better not. Yeah. Why don't you just do what you have been doing and watch someone else do that on YouTube? Whatever you're thinking of doing, like, watch someone else do that and get a little bit of that feeling vicariously through watching them do it, but don't do it yourself. I think of it like, you live in a palace, like a royal palace, and you walk through the grounds and it's beautiful. But once you get to that wall, the guards start to say, hey, you haven't been out there. Don't go out there. It's not safe. And when we can see those guards as an element of ourself that's really trying to protect us and say, oh, I see what you're trying to do. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe. I've got this. I've got my safety, and I'm going to step out and it'll be okay. Then we can be informed by the guards that we're stepping into new territory, but the guards don't get to drive the bus of our business or our life, right? So we can make decisions from an informed place. And when we know how, we can navigate our own nervous system dysregulation, get back into a regulated place, and make sound decisions from there. But the instinct of fear is to say,
Yes.
better not go toward that wall.
So I think this is wonderful because again, we met at Fest. You know, you had 10 episodes in. You're
Yeah.
just getting started, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you show up at this big conference with all these podcasters that have
Yeah.
been doing it for years and years and years and years. Did you experience those conversations internally, like about stepping into that space?
The conversations that I had were, I am going to, I'm an Enneagram 9, by the way, and that is the archetype is the diplomat. And so we
Okay.
can see all sides of an issue. And it's
Yes.
really helpful to have a 9 in a discussion that's kind of difficult and
Yep.
challenging
Mhm.
because we can diplomatically see all sides without judgment. The shadow side of the 9 is that we can see so many possibilities that we
Right.
become frozen and we
Right.
don't take action. And so
Analysis
the
paralysis.
conversations, right, exactly, analysis paralysis. So the conversations I had with myself going in were, this is going to be a lot of information. And my objective is to be present, and I will instinctively know what is for me, and I will let go of all the rest. And so I'm going to take those nuggets that are for me right now, trusting that inner guidance system,
Yep.
and make actionable to-dos about those things. And the rest I'm just going to let wash over me. And I'm not going to judge myself for not taking it all in because I physically can't. And I had an objective of 3 podcast guests for my show.
Okay.
And yeah, and I achieved that. So I kept the bar pretty low for
Okay.
myself
Okay.
and said,
Okay.
this is what I'm gonna expect and get out of it. And so, yeah, that was a nice practice. It was a nice playground to play in.
Yeah. There you go. 3 is a good number. Did I make the cut? Am I one of the 3?
You're welcome to come on on
So
my
my fourth
podcast
is
if
that
you'd
am I the
like.
4th one?
Yes, you would be 4 if you'd like to.
You're
Yeah,
such an
be great to have
overachiever. Look
you.
at you, man. That's awesome. That's awesome, Erin. This has been so delightful. I'm so glad that we had the chance to talk. Something we like to do here really quickly as we wrap up. You know, I call it fearless fast round, and really what it is, rapid fire. I throw something, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind if you're up with that.
Great.
Yeah, I want to try it. Okay.
Yeah,
How
let's
about this?
go.
What was your first big breakthrough moment?
Saying a line on a stage in a play that got a laugh.
Okay. I would have done a lot for your confidence, I would imagine,
I was
getting
about
that.
5 years old or 6. Yeah, I love
I
that.
love it. The biggest myth when it comes to strength.
That it comes from the outside.
Mm, okay. One word that defines audacity.
Safety.
Mhm. How about a failure that became a gift?
Getting fired from an organization that I co-founded.
Wow. That sounds like
Yeah,
a great story.
yeah.
A habit that you swear by.
Meditation.
Okay. And what scares you the most?
Mm. Not fully stepping into the impact that is uniquely mine to make in this universe.
Hmm. Your favorite way to recharge.
Sleep.
The best. I love it. Yeah. Listen, I'm a sleeper. I get it loud and clear. Something that people misunderstand about you.
I think this might be more in my head than
Mhm.
actual in the world, but as a person who is small in stature, I've often had the thought that people underestimate my strength.
Yeah. For me, if I answer this question, people think I'm go all the time, and I am absolutely not. When I go home, I flatline, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's my recharge time. But people think I'm on this high level. Oh, there's Mr. Audacity again. It's not quite that. Lastly, the bravest choice that you've ever made.
To sing on a Broadway stage.
Oh my gosh. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was great to be invited. It was cool to be a part of it. It was fun to rehearse, but actually stepping out and doing that was really brave.
Bravo. Good for you. Good for
Thank
you.
you.
Good for you. Listen, thank you for doing this. And for listeners that wanted to connect with you, potential clients, maybe work with you, or to people to check out your podcast, just give us a podcast and where they can find it and find you.
The Brave and Balanced Fundraiser is on Apple and Spotify, and they can find me on vitalistcoaching.com.
Cool. And we will make sure that we put all the appropriate contact details in the show notes below. Erin, this has been great. I'm so delighted and glad that we had the time to do this, and glad that we connected. And thank you for approaching my tired self and thank you and confusing me with someone else. It was meant to be, clearly, and I'm happy that you did so. Congratulations on the work. Congratulations on starting a new podcast. I mean, 10 episodes in. Good
Thank
for you.
you.
Congratulations. And as a guy that's been doing this for a long time, I know the work and dedication involved, and you're at the beginning of your journey. I'm so excited for you for that. And again, thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Audley, I can't tell you how special this was. This is the first podcast I've ever been a guest on. And so I just want to thank you for making this so lovely an experience for me, and just for being you. The warmth that you bring and the brightness of your spirit is undeniable. And it's an honor to be in your presence.
Thank you so much. I'm blushing. I'm the best. Cool. Back we are, and welcome back, everyone. You know, I still love that this whole conversation started because Erin walked up to me at PodFest thinking I was somebody else who told her to bring a backpack. And honestly, I'm really glad that she did, because what followed was such a thoughtful reminder that burnout isn't always about doing too much. It's often about living too far away from yourself. You know, what really stayed with me from this conversation that we had was Erin's point that so many of us are waiting to feel courageous before we take action and act. You know, when in reality, what that feeling often comes after we take that step forward. You know, I also loved her perspective that safety is not something we have to wait for or other people to give it to us. We already have it. We don't have to wait for anyone to hand it to us or give us permission. You know, when we start trusting ourselves, celebrating our wins, and honoring our boundaries, we create the conditions to move through life with more clarity, more peace, and more power. Choosing yourself can be the boldest move you ever made. It's time for an audacious insight, a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. Now, when Viola Davis decided she was no longer going to shrink herself to fit the roles, expectations, and limitations others placed on her, she began stepping more fully into her own power, her voice, and truth. Viola's rise wasn't built on pretending, pleasing, or playing small. It came from embracing who she was and showing up with honesty, depth, and courage. That's exactly what audacity looks like when you stop living for approval and start living from alignment. Sometimes the most powerful breakthrough happens when you finally give yourself permission to be fully seen. Be sure to check out Erin's podcast, The Brave and Balanced Fundraiser, and connect with her at vitalistcoaching.com. And if this episode spoke to you, make sure you're following the podcast, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a review so more people can find these conversations. Thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness, be audacious.